I did get a chance to watch the Field of Dreams game, which the Yankees were going to play in it last year, but because of COVID-19, it was canceled. So they moved it. And I love that they were playing the Chicago White Sox because the Chicago White Sox, it was mainly about. I mean, the story was about ex-Chicago White Sox that, everybody knows that the Chicago White Sox bet on baseball, and it cost them World Series. It cost them a lot of these guys never got a chance to play baseball again when they found out about the scandal. So there were so many great baseball players, and a lot of those guys were in the movie. So it wouldn't fit very well if it wasn't the White Sox. And boy, oh boy, did the White Sox explode at the end of the game. Now, Aaron Judge had one of those games that this is why Aaron Judge is such a special player. He had 5 RBIs. I think he had, a home run, double, or something like that.
He had 2 home runs.
2 home runs in a game. He was fantastic and looked like the superstar that he is when 100% healthy. And what did the Yankees do in the 9th inning? They put Zach Britton in. And I like Zach Britton, but this is not the same Zach Britton that was on the Baltimore Orioles, that was just absolutely unstoppable. I remember when that season where he didn't screw up one save. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, was a Cy Young finalist.
Yeah, he was special.
In a year that Rick Porcello should have never won, by the way.
Yes, he was special that year. And the Yankees adding Zach Britton, everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion that this bullpen was going to be unstoppable. It's far from unstoppable. With Chapman, with Britton this year, with Green, this bullpen has just fallen apart. This is not the same bullpen that the Yankees have had year in and year out for 20 years, where they were unstoppable. This is a bullpen that's been costly for the New York Yankees. And even the trades that the Yankees made, by the way, they lost Anthony Rizzo for COVID. He's out for a certain amount of time. And Joey Gallo has been fantastic since the Yankees got Joey Gallo in the trade. The Yankees have done everything right besides figure out what's going on with this bullpen. And maybe it's Boone. Maybe it really is. Maybe you want to blame, if you want Tyler, you want all those guys that absolutely can't stand Aaron Boone. Maybe it is Aaron Boone. Maybe not. You can't blame Aaron Boone for all his team's woes. He can't pitch in those games. He puts the players in that have to make the pitches. They're not making the pitches. Zach Britton is an unbelievable relief pitcher, one of the best in the league. You would expect him to shut down everybody in the 9th inning. What did he do? He put a guy on base, and then the guy hits a 2-run home run. Now, that explains why I believe the Yankees are not a playoff-bound team this year. I know everybody's going to say it's still a lot of games left. They're 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. That's a significant amount, 2.5 games. And with the teams in front of them, like the Oakland Athletics and even the Boston Red Sox, they got to go on more skids. They got to go on even a longer skids for the Yankees to catch up. And right now, the Yankees are just not that team. Those type of games with the Field of Dreams, the Yankees should have won that game. A game like Aaron Judge had in that game, you would expect the Yankees to win a game like that. Over the years, the Yankees would win a game like that. And what happens? They choked. So, Speedy, when you watch a team choke like that in a big prestige position on Fox Sports with Joe Buck saying, Rob hits the ball. Joe, I'm not a big Joe Buck fan. I make fun of him all the time, but I think he's a nice guy. He's got a lot of talent, but I'm not a big fan of his. But on Fox Sports, you would expect the Yankees to win a game like that, Speedy.
Yeah, again, they're definitely the team more in those feature games. The White Sox being a newer team, a younger team that has done well this year in the feature games. I think they're like 11-3 when they're on that like prime time Sunday Night Baseball or Saturday feature games like that. So they've done well this year, but the Yankees, they're always in those types of games. You would think they would be more used to it. But again, the stage was set for the White Sox, obviously being the Midwest, the Field of Dreams. And it looked like they were rolling for a while. Then the Yankees came back. They scored 4 runs off of the White Sox bullpen, which is very good. Liam Hendricks, and then I think Aaron Bummer was in the 9th inning too. Good pitchers that the White Sox have. And then all of a sudden, Zach Britton comes in. He gets the first out, but then all of a sudden draws a walk. Yeah. And again, I don't think it was the worst pitch he threw on the home run, but it still was something that he should have gotten more away. And it's right. The players have to execute more. The Yankees have a lot of these namesake type players, especially with their pitching, that it seems like once they get going, and all of a sudden they'll fall off a cliff that quickly. We've seen it already with Garrett Cole throughout the year so far. Obviously, Aroldis Chapman, who looked like he was pitching great for a month and a half, and then all of a sudden he fell off a cliff, and now maybe Zach Britton, you're starting to see it too.
And Chicago's not a bad team. Nobody.
No, they're a very good team.
They're the second best team in the American League. They're a good team. And who would have thought that the Astros would have the best record in the American League? Nobody. After all the losses and all the players that they lost. But this young pitching staff, the Astros pitching staff, who has come out of nowhere. There's no Justin Verlander. There's no Garrett Cole. These are young pitchers that are just playing good baseball, and they're getting timely hitting for Bregman and all these other guys. This is a different Astros team. But the Yankees played a very good White Sox team, and you would think after being up 8-7 in the ninth inning, the way Aaron Judge played, and even their young pitcher that was on the mound played very well and pitched very well in the game, you would expect them to win that game. They didn't. So
a lot of those feature guys, too, they have to start coming through. The Judge has done it so far. Giancarlo Stanton's done it. He had the monster home run in the ninth inning to give them the lead. But again, they just need these other guys. These guys we know that have the potential. They have the namesake. They have the talent. And a lot of them just haven't put it together consistently. And there's a lot of teams that have had those kinds of issues this year. It's more of a depth type year and obviously like versatility more than anything else, which the Yankees do have on paper, but still because of the injuries, they haven't been able to use it as much. But they have to be a little more consistent as a whole, especially in that kind of wild card race.
As far as the Mets are concerned, they're playing pretty good baseball. They lost the other night against the Dodgers, but before the Dodgers series, they've been playing good baseball, and they fell out of first place.
Yep.
Who would have thought they were going to fall out of first place? They were 7-8 games up from Philly and the Braves. We all know the deficiencies of the Braves with their starting pitching. We all know the deficiencies of the Phillies. But by the way, and I've told everybody why the Mets should have signed Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler right now could very much win the Cy Young in the National League. Another Met where everybody's talking about, keep Noah Syndergaard. There was no reason why the Mets should have kept Noah Syndergaard. They should have traded Noah Syndergaard and re-signed Zach Wheeler, because Zach Wheeler has proven to everybody why he is such a special pitcher and why I believe with all the pitchers that he has that he was just as good, not as good as Jacob deGrom, but right there with Jacob deGrom as the Mets' either second or 1B type of pitcher. And he's going to win the Cy Young this year. I absolutely believe he is. And he is the reason why the Phillies right now are in first place in the National League East, Speed.
Carrying that pitching staff that literally has Aaron Nola, who's okay, he's fine, but literally nothing else. That bullpen has got awful. I was saying on the Sports Loudmouth, they had Gabe Kapler as their manager a year before. He's doing great in San Francisco, and they had Joe Girardi, who we know has had past success with the Yankees. That bullpen seems unmanageable to no matter who's the manager, and yet Zach Wheeler is still pitching well. Yeah, naturally had a complete game shutout against the Mets on Sunday, I think it was. And so, yeah, just to rub it in more, take over first place that way. And so he's essentially carrying a team that's really hitting oriented and have a lot of overpaid veteran type players. And then you got the Braves that are now scrapping their way back.
Unbelievable.
I forget where I heard this comparison, similar to the 2015 Mets too, where they have all these veteran guys now starting to hit for them that amidst the Acuna injury, all the injuries they have with their pitching staff, that awful bullpen that they have, they're now starting to win scrappy rather than the talent-based team we thought at the beginning of the year when a lot of people thought they were the second best team in baseball outside of the Dodgers. So they're winning in those kinds of ways now. Will it work in the playoffs? We'll see. But again, it's working to now compete.
The Mets might not even make the playoffs this year.
I'm now leaning towards the Braves right now, the way they're playing. They have a sense of grit, which the Mets don't have right now.
If the Mets don't make the playoffs this year, what does somebody like Steve Cohen do in the offseason? They just paid Lindor the money. They made a trade for Javier Baez, and Javier Baez is going to want $160, $170 million. You're talking about two infield players that are going to make about $500 million in the next 10 to 11 years. Is that worth paying for when these guys can't get you over the hump and get you in the playoffs? Lindor hasn't been healthy over the last couple of weeks. No. And Javier Baez, as good as he has been since he's been here in the Mets the last week, hasn't hit a lick. So what are the Mets doing in the offseason? Are they going to spend another $500, $600 million like they did last season just to make a point that they have a owner that's going to spend money? What do you think he's going to spend? Why don't we turn into Josh Silverberg? Well, we'll buy everybody. We'll spend $1 billion and we'll buy everybody. Who cares if we're over the salary cap? We got a guy that could afford it, so who cares? I mean, don't try to be something that you're not. Build your team and turn your team into a championship competitive team. This isn't the Yankees. And by the way, the Yankees never bought their way to a championship. The time where they were the best of the best in the 90s, They had a core of players, and they put a bunch of veterans around that core. That's how they won. That's how you win in this league. The Astros have done it, even though they cheated. Even San Francisco, over the years. How did San Francisco do it? They built around a core of pitchers and a core of players, Posey, top-end pitchers, and then you win through that. That's how you win. You don't buy players and bring players and superstars to your team because you expect they're going to bring you up and bring you a championship.
The most notable probably free agent name or like outside or the organization name they brought in was Hunter Pence, who was a good player but not a superstar, and they still win championships.
What did they get him for? The Nationals?
The Phillies. The Phillies.
It
He
was
was
the
with the
Phillies.
Astros. Then the Astros traded him to the Phillies, I think, in 2011 when they had that great team, and then the Phillies traded him to the Giants where they fell off a cliff in 2012.
Yep, and he did win a championship with the Giants eventually, too. So you have to build a team with the right people and the right players at the positions that they play. And if the Mets think that they're going to buy their way to a championship, it just doesn't work like that. Jacob deGrom is one of the best pitchers I've ever seen. Here's the problem with Jacob. He can't stay healthy. Jacob deGrom gives you almost a guaranteed 2 runs and no more than that when he pitches. He's not going to give up more than 2 runs. That usually gives you a chance to win every game in baseball. And the Mets don't give him runs, and the guy can't stay healthy. So, unfortunately, as great as Jacob deGrom is, and he's a Hall of Famer, there's no pitcher in the last 5 years that's been as dominant as Jacob deGrom. Nobody. But to me, Jacob, the prime of his career right now and the heart of his career is right now, the Mets aren't giving him the right talent around him that's going to give him a chance and the benefit to winning a championship like they did with Doc Gooden, like they did with Tom Seaver. And that's a huge problem.
I also think, too, to an extent, they kind of trusted the overperformers they had in the beginning of the season too much. Because the Mets had the stretch where they had all the injuries and they were winning. And that's a big reason why they were able to grow their lead so much. And I think a lot of those guys, they trusted too much and now are falling off in the second half. Taijuan Walker being a big example of that. Taijuan Walker had a sub-3 ERA for much of the year, and he's really struggled. Stroman's been up and down in the second half of the season so far. As a result, they didn't trade for more pitching depth, and now a lot of these guys are hurt because of that. Same thing with a lot of the hitters, too. The scrap heap hitters are coming through, so they thought, all right, we'll just have to get our guys back, and they'll start hitting. No, none of them have really started hitting outside of Alonso. So you're dealing with a case where I think they trusted their current core too much because those other scrap heap type guys kept him in it for a while, and now they're losing it where they don't have the depth that a lot of people thought they had at the beginning of the season, and they definitely don't have the depth to compete with any of these playoff teams, even if they do make it and somehow squeak out the National League East. But the Braves have more depth on the roster than the Mets do. The Phillies, they have more offensive depth. They don't have the pitching depth, but they have the offensive depth, and now they're starting to play well too. And that's maybe a big flaw of maybe why they could have been more aggressive at the trade deadline too, now coming back to haunt them.